Hey, cheer up, buddy. He's mad. He's mad he can't be outside chasing snakes. I don't blame him. All right, what do we got here? What kind of Bitcoin-based jobs do you think will take off as the asset further matures in the market, excluding software developers? That's a great question. That's a very good question. And I think when people think of Bitcoin jobs, they're thinking, I'm going to go work for Coinbase. I'm going to go work for Bitcoin Well. I'm going to go work for, I don't know, who else? A podcaster or a YouTuber, something. But I think it's going to be a lot different than that, because you have to keep in mind here, that as this whole thing, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago on the show, and I apologize for those who are here for that and have to listen to it again, but it's worth repeating. So in this next bull run here, I think that there's been a lot of businesses, especially like in the Bitcoin sphere. I think a lot of businesses, instead of spending money on like growth or hiring people or investing in the business, I think the majority of those companies have been holding their free cash flow in Bitcoin because they know what's coming here, especially for like the last 2 years. I think that Bitcoin companies understand that it's far more valuable to just get through the bear markets, stack as much Bitcoin as you can. And then once you have the leverage there, once you have the purchasing power, that's when you grow. That's when you start hiring people. That's when you start marketing. That's when you start investing back in Bitcoin, using some of the, or in your business, using some of the Bitcoin reserves you've built up. So that's the first part. I think there's going to be a lot more Bitcoin businesses, or at least businesses who have been stacking Bitcoin, that are going to be hiring over these next couple of years as their reserve, as their fund that they've been building up increases in purchasing power. Because if you think about it, let's say that a company has been operating for the last couple of years within, not in the Bitcoin space, but they've been building up Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And there's a lot of companies who have been doing this that aren't public, that aren't MicroStrategy. And so let's say that they stacked up $50,000 worth of Bitcoin today. That's how much they have. So instead of hiring somebody, or even more than that, $100,000, instead of hiring somebody, instead of marketing, they've been buying Bitcoin. So as we go through these next 6, 12, 18 months, all of a sudden that becomes 200,000 worth, and then 300,000 worth, and then 500,000 worth, and beyond. And think about how much more purchasing power they have, even if they spent the excess there. Let's say they just kept their initial investment of $100,000 worth of Bitcoin and spent the rest on growing their business. That's what I think is coming in these next couple of years. So that's the first part. But you also have to think about all the businesses who don't have Bitcoin yet. Think about the bigger businesses. I'm thinking like car dealerships, insurance agencies, banks. All of these companies, when they see the rise in price, when they see the success that MicroStrategy's had, when they see all these different factors at play right now, including BlackRock coming out and saying that they're betting on the dollar crashing, they're going to start looking into Bitcoin. And when they do that, they're not going to be watching YouTube videos. They're going to be looking to hire somebody who's knowledgeable in Bitcoin, either hire or contract somebody who's knowledgeable in Bitcoin to help out their business, to learn about Bitcoin, so they can start adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. So don't limit yourself to just the Bitcoin companies. Think beyond that. Every company on earth is going to have a head of Bitcoin strategy in these next couple of years. Maybe not next couple of years, within the next decade. The smart ones will be doing it in the next couple of years, and that's going to be plenty. If you think about think about the spread here. Think about the spread between companies who are going to need Bitcoin and people who understand, and can help that business with Bitcoin. There's a huge spread there, massive. So don't ever estimate, just because you've been in Bitcoin for a couple of years now and you've been sinking a whole bunch of time and energy into Bitcoin and nothing's really come of it yet, don't think that your knowledge is not valuable. It's going to be extremely valuable in the coming years. So what you have to do is just find a network, put yourself in as many networks and communities as you can, because you're going to be the one who has to come up and find the opportunities. Unfortunately, it's going to be like a big time lag between, like there's not going to be anything that's going to connect companies to Bitcoiners. That's what's going to be the lacking force there. So what you have to do is you have to look for opportunities. You have to be the one who's out there talking to people, networking with other Bitcoiners who know a company hiring, or maybe they're the company hiring. And so I would strongly suggest, if you haven't yet, and I know that there's been a lot of people as of late joining, but join the Living in the Future. That's where you're going to find the most opportunities right in front of your face. You're not going to have to look too far. It's going to be right in front of your face. And we're going to talk about it a bit here in terms of the show today, but there's lots of opportunities there. So if that's something that you want to do, like I said, if you've been somebody who's been, it's the amount of time I've spent listening, learning, and watching about you on Bitcoin for the last 4 or 5 years is insane. And I know that there's people probably watching the show here who feel that way, same way. And so if that's something that you want to do, if you either want to work for a Bitcoin company, start your own business, or find other businesses who are looking for somebody to help them with Bitcoin, then consider joining a network and consider Living in the Future. I think it's the best one out there. As I've said before, I joined the Orange Pill app about a year ago. I paid 100,000 sats and I haven't used it once. And you compare that to the Living in the Future community, and I'm sure people can attest to this in the chat, but there's a lot of value there, a lot of value for much less cost. Like an example, we've been doing it for about 6 months now. This is kind of the crazy part to me. We've been doing it for about 6 months now. So if you've been a member from day one, a member of that community, you would have paid 6 times $5, $30 for 6 months worth. You can't even buy a fucking sub in Canada anymore for $30. Well, you can, but you know what I mean. Like that's what I mean. Like, don't think of it as like an investment in your future. Even though the opportunities aren't right in front of you, that's the kind of things you have to be doing to be looking for those opportunities and finding them. Daniel says, Living in the Future is way better than Orange Pill app. The only people I connected with on Orange Pill app were shills. Yeah, exactly. And that's the nice thing about it, is that, you know, it's $5 a month. It's helping support the channel here. Of course, it's keeping me motivated to keep adding value to the community, but it's also a barrier. It's the spam filter that we've been talking about for forever here. Because if I just said, okay, here's this Telegram chat, here's this Signal chat, anybody can join, it'd be a nightmare. So with this, people actually have to have some skin in the game. They have to be committed enough to pay a small amount and be part of that. If you are somebody who's interested in that, I'd say that it's the best investment that you can make right now, truly. So I didn't mean for that to be an ad, but that's how you're gonna have to find these opportunities, is within networks. A company's not going to see, your local bank isn't going to phone up DJR78 because they saw them on YouTube. They're not going to be able to find you, right? They might not even know you have Bitcoin. So you have to put yourself in these situations, whether that's a community, whether that's going to meetups, conferences. I wouldn't say unless you've been in Bitcoin for at least 2 cycles, but this is kind of the starting grounds for that. And this is going to evolve into so much more. And I've said from day one, the people who are here in the community early are going to be rewarded most for that. And we are still very early.